On October 14, 1943, the sky over central Germany turns hostile long before the enemy appears. 316 B-17 flying fortresses push deeper toward Schweinfurt, their aluminum skins glinting dully through broken cloud. Inside them, young men check oxygen lines, tighten flak jackets, and watch fuel gauges with the quiet dread of people who already know how this story usually ends. At the edge of the formation, American fighter escorts begin to peel away. Not because they are losing the fight, not because they are low on ammunition, but because they are low on fuel. P-47 Thunderbolts, big, powerful, brutally tough, simply cannot go any farther. The escorts turn back. The bombers keep going. For the next 3 hours, unprotected, the Luftwaffe tears into the formation. Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs climb above, dive through, and come back again. By the time the surviving bombers limp home, 60 aircraft are gone. 600 men killed, wounded, or missing in a single day. Colonel Don Blakesley, watching the reports come in, says what everyone is thinking, but no one in authority wants to hear. Until we get a fighter that can go to Berlin and back, he says, we're sending these bomber boys to die. The cruel part is this: that fighter already exists. It is just sitting in the wrong category with the wrong engine, stamped with the wrong decision. The airplane is called the P-51 Mustang. When it first flies in October 1940, it is everything engineers admire. Sleek, efficient, fast at low altitude. Its wing uses a new laminar flow airfoil developed by ACA, reducing drag in ways that seem almost unfair. Its radiator is buried deep in the fuselage, exploiting something called the Meredith effect, recovering thrust from hot exhaust air instead of wasting it. On paper, the Mustang is elegant. In practice, the U.S. Army Air Forces don't want it, because above 15,000 feet, the engine begins to suffocate. The Allison V-1710 is a solid power plant, reliable, easy to maintain, but it uses a single-stage supercharger. At altitude, where bombers live and die, it simply cannot breathe. Horsepower drops, performance collapses. German fighters climb above it and stay there. The verdict comes quickly. Good reconnaissance aircraft, good ground attack platform, not a high-altitude fighter. The Mustang is dismissed. Production continues, but expectations do not. Procurement officers commit instead to what feels safer. Machines already chosen, contracts already signed, doctrines already written. The P-47 Thunderbolt will escort the bombers. The P-38 Lightning will handle the long range. The paperwork is clean. The sky is not. In Britain, meanwhile, a quiet figure takes notice. Ronald Harker is not a fighter ace. He does not command squadrons or shape strategy. He is an engine specialist working with Rolls-Royce, a man who understands power curves, boost pressure, and what happens to metal when it is pushed too far in thin air. Harker flies the Mustang, not once, not twice, again and again. He feels the airframe beneath him, how little drag it carries, how easily it accelerates, how stable it remains as speed builds. And every time he climbs past 15,000 feet, he feels the same thing. The airplane wants to keep going. The engine does not. To Harker, the problem is obvious and infuriating. The Mustang is not failing because it is badly designed. It is failing because it is mismatched. Rolls-Royce's Merlin engine, by contrast, thrives where the Allison dies. Its two-stage, two-speed supercharger compresses air efficiently, even at 25,000, 30,000 feet. In Spitfires, It has already proven itself against the Luftwaffe. Airframe and engine exist. Both are mature. Both are available. They are simply not allowed to meet. No one has authorized the experiment. No one has requested the data. No one wants to reopen a decision that has already moved into production schedules and budgets. And so, while bomber crews climb into aircraft that may not make it home, Ronald Harker does something the system was never designed to permit. He ignores it. In early 1942, at Hucknall Airfield in England, a Mustang is quietly modified. The Allison is removed. A Merlin is installed. The fit is imperfect. The cowling lines are wrong. The cooling system has to be reworked by hand. It is not elegant. It is not approved. It is exactly what the situation demands. When Harker takes the modified Mustang up for its first flight, he does not circle the field. He climbs 10,000 feet, 15, 20. The engine keeps pulling. At 25,000 feet, where the original Mustang was already a liability, this one is just beginning to wake up. Throttle response sharpens. Power holds. The airplane no longer feels like a compromise. It feels dangerous. Harker brings it back down and writes his report. The numbers are undeniable. Speed increases dramatically at altitude. Climb rate improves. Range remains exceptional. The data says one thing very clearly: the war in the air could be changed. Whether the system will allow it is another question entirely. The report does not travel fast. In wartime Britain, speed belongs to bombers and fighters, not paperwork. Harker's numbers move through channels designed to smooth edges, not confront mistakes. They land on desks already crowded with commitments to the P-47, to the P-38, to production lines that cannot simply stop and turn. The response is polite, interested, non-committal. Because accepting Harker's data means admitting something far more dangerous than a technical oversight. It means admitting that for months, perhaps years, the system has been sending men into combat with the wrong answer. At Wright Field in Ohio, procurement officers review the Mustang again. On paper, in controlled language, the Allison engine is familiar. The Merlin is British. Licensing is complicated. Retooling takes time. Time is something the bomber crews over Germany do not have. So the files stall, and the bombers keep flying. November comes. Then December, another Schweinfurt. Another set of loss reports that read like obituaries written in bulk. Crews begin to talk openly about odds, about tours they don't expect to finish. Some start carrying extra morphine. Some stop writing letters home. The escort still turn back. Blakesley watches fuel needles drop and feels the same anger harden into something colder. He has commanded fighters long enough to know when a problem is not tactical, but structural. This is not about bravery, he tells anyone who will listen. This is about range. Meanwhile, the Merlin Mustang refuses to stay quiet. British test pilots put it through its paces. At altitude, it outruns and outclimbs aircraft that used to dominate it. At 30,000 feet, it is faster than a Spitfire. It handles smoothly, predictably, an escort pilot's dream. The airplane is no longer hypothetical. It exists, and that makes ignoring it harder. In early 1943, American officers finally come to see it for themselves. They do not arrive expecting to be convinced. They arrive expecting to confirm their doubts. Instead, they watch a Mustang lift cleanly into the sky, climb past 25,000 feet without gasping, and level out where the Luftwaffe lives. They see the numbers. They say nothing, because the implication is enormous. Switching engines means rewriting contracts, delaying deliveries, admitting that previous evaluations were wrong. It means explaining to families why their sons flew missions without the one machine that could have stayed with them. Institutions resist that kind of truth, but war applies pressure in only one direction. By mid-1943, the evidence can no longer be buried under caution. The 8th Air Force is bleeding itself white. Bomber losses approach unsustainable levels. Morale cracks. Crews talk openly about mutiny if missions continue without adequate escort. At last, the decision comes, not as an admission of error, but as a refinement. The P-51 will be re-engined, production shifts. Merlin engines are licensed and built in America as the Packard 5i-1650. Factories retool at breakneck speed. What had been impractical becomes urgent overnight. The Mustang is reborn. Pilots notice the difference immediately. The new P-51 does not just escort bombers to the edge of danger, it stays. It climbs with them. It waits above them. And when German fighters appear, it does not defend passively, it hunts. Blakesley finally gets what he asked for, a fighter that can go to Berlin and back, and the Luftwaffe feels it. Where German pilots once chose when and where to attack, they now find American fighters already overhead, engines strong, fuel still available. Engagements that once favored Germany become contests of attrition they cannot afford. The sky begins to change character. Bomber formations grow denser. Losses drop. Crews start to believe, cautiously, that survival might no longer be a statistical anomaly. Far below, Ronald Harker watches the transformation from a distance. No ceremony, no promotion, no public acknowledgement. His experiment is absorbed into the system as if it had always been inevitable. But inevitability is a luxury purchased with time, and time in this war was paid for by men who never knew the Mustang could have stayed with them. By early 1944, the sky over Europe belongs to a different rhythm. B-17s and B-24s still fly in tight boxes, but now there is something new around them, motion that does not peel away at the edge of a fuel calculation. P-51 Mustangs stay close through the Channel, through the Low Countries, past the old turning points where escorts once vanished. They keep going. German pilots notice first. They climb to altitude, expecting empty air above the bombers. Instead, they find Mustangs already there, engines humming comfortably at 25,000 feet, noses slightly down, energy banked and waiting. The fight no longer begins on German terms. It begins when the Americans choose. Colonel Don Blakesley leads his escorts past the bombers now, not tied to them. The doctrine changes in practice before it changes on paper. The Mustangs range ahead, slash at airfields, attack fighters as they climb, force engagements when the Luftwaffe is weakest. The bomber crews feel it immediately. Fewer contrails diving out of the sun, fewer sudden holes torn through formations, more aircraft making it home. Loss rates fall, not to zero, never to zero, but low enough that the math finally works. Missions can continue without hollowing out entire groups. Crews stop counting odds and start counting sorties again. The Luftwaffe cannot adapt fast enough. Its experienced pilots are hunted in the air and on the ground. Its training pipeline shortens. Quality sacrificed for numbers. Fuel shortages keep aircraft grounded even when pilots are available. What had been a confident defender of German airspace becomes a shrinking force, reacting instead of dictating. By mid-1944, air superiority in Europe is no longer a question. It is a condition. The invasion of Normandy depends on it. The breakout that follows relies on it. Armies move because the sky above them is finally hostile to the enemy. The P-51 Mustang becomes the symbol of that shift. Not because it is flawless, not because it is unbeatable, but because it solves the one problem that mattered most. It stays. Ronald Harker does not stand on airfields watching formations return. He does not give interviews. His name does not appear in communiques or victory speeches. By the time the Mustang's reputation hardens into legend, the moment when it could have changed everything sooner is already gone. The system absorbs the lesson without apology. Official histories talk about progress, about development curves, about inevitability. They rarely mention the months when the answer existed but was inconvenient, when airframes and engines sat one decision apart while bomber crews paid the interest. In the end, the war in the air is not saved by a miracle. It is saved by alignment. An airframe allowed to be what it always was, an engine allowed to work where it was designed to, a system forced by loss and pressure to admit it had chosen wrong. The Mustang did not win the air war by being new. It won by being ignored, rejected, and then finally allowed to exist in the form it always needed to be. And for the men who flew into Germany before that moment, watching their escorts turn back, watching the sky close in, the difference between those two timelines was everything. History remembers the aircraft. It forgets how close it came to never being used at all.